The gathering storm, the great crystalline amphitheater of the Galactic Assembly, had never witnessed such unity. For the first time in recorded history, all 847 member civilizations stood as one. Their banners, representing countless worlds and species, rose in perfect synchronization. The vote was unanimous. Earth must be stopped. High Arbiter Velanara, her ethereal form shimmering like captured starlight, addressed the assembly with a voice that resonated through both air and minds. The humans have become unpredictable. In merely 3 centuries, they have spread across 17 star systems. They negotiate when they should conquer. They befriend when they should dominate. They ask questions when they should follow orders. Commander Zexthol of the mighty Corvani Empire stepped forward. His forearms crossed in the traditional pose of military authority. His species had ruled their sector for 10,000 years through strength and rigid discipline. They mock our sacred traditions, he declared. When we offered them the honor of joining our warrior caste, they suggested we try painting instead. When the ethereal council shared the wisdom of predetermined fate, humans asked if they could change it. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The crystalline beings of Zarian chimed their disapproval in harmonic frequencies. The gas cloud entities of the Nebula Consortium pulsed with indignant colors. Even the ancient machine intelligence of the core worlds calculated humanity as a variable that refused to be solved. They have no respect for the natural order, continued Velanara. Their children question their elders. Their leaders admit mistakes. Their scientists pursue knowledge for the sake of curiosity rather than practical application. This chaos cannot be allowed to spread. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel Curiosity, 13 light-years from Earth, completely unaware of the Galactic Tribunal deciding her species' fate. She was studying the latest xenobiological reports when Dr. Marcus Webb burst into the command center, his usually calm demeanor shattered. "Sarah, you need to see this," Webb gasped, clutching a datapad with trembling hands. As Earth's leading xenobiologist and the human representative to various alien cultures, Webb had spent years building relationships across the galaxy. I intercepted this communication from my contact in the Corvani diplomatic corps. Chen took the pad and read the decoded message. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to grim determination. The entire Galactic Assembly had voted to contain humanity. A massive armada was already assembling at the edge of human space. "How long do we have?" Chen asked. 6 months, maybe 7. They're bringing everything, Sarah. The Corvani war fleets, the ethereal mindbenders, the Zarian crystal ships, even the machine intelligence dreadnoughts. This isn't a negotiation, it's an execution. Chen turned to face the stars beyond the view screen. In her 45 years, she had seen humanity reach for the impossible and achieve it time and again. They had healed their own world, learned to live in harmony with each other, and reached out to the stars, not as conquerors, but as friends. Now, it seemed, the galaxy wanted to punish them for being different. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," Chen ordered. "We're going home." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Chen watched as human society received the news of the impending invasion. She expected panic, fear, maybe even despair. Instead, she witnessed something that reminded her why the aliens found humans so troubling. Curiosity replaced fear. Instead of preparing weapons, humans began preparing questions. What did the aliens really want? Why were they afraid of human unpredictability? How could understanding bridge the gap between species? Dr. Webb worked around the clock, analyzing every piece of alien psychology and culture he had gathered over the years. "They're not evil, Sarah," he reported during one of their strategy sessions. "They're scared. Every alien species I've encountered has achieved stability through control, order, predictability. We achieve it through adaptation, growth, change. To them, we must look like chaos incarnate." "So what do you propose?" Chen asked. Webb smiled, and Chen recognized the expression that had made him humanity's most successful alien diplomat. "We show them what human chaos really looks like." Earth's response to the crisis was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of mobilizing armies, humanity mobilized artists. Instead of building weapons, they built libraries. Instead of fortifying their world, they opened it wider than ever before. When the alien armada finally arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found Earth broadcasting on every frequency imaginable. Not surrender terms or defiant challenges, but stories. Human stories. Tales of triumph and failure, love and loss, dreams achieved and dreams that failed but led to better dreams. Commander Zexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Discipline, watching the impossible sight before him. Earth hung in space like a blue-green jewel, completely undefended. No weapons platforms, no shield generators, no defensive fleets, just a single message repeating on all channels. "Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you. Would you like to hear a story?" The Corvani commander's tactical officers reported the same bewildering readings. No military preparations detected. Instead, every major city on Earth was hosting what humans called festivals. Millions of people gathered in parks and plazas, sharing food, music, and tales from their world and others. "It's a trap," declared Subcommander Kexnot. "No species welcomes their conquerors with celebration." But Zexthol was not so certain. His people had conquered 100 worlds, and they all followed the same pattern. Fear, then resistance, then submission. This was something entirely new. High Arbiter Valinara materialized on the Corvani bridge through her ethereal projection. "Commander, why have you not begun the containment operation?" "The humans are not behaving as predicted," Zextor replied carefully. "They appear to be celebrating our arrival." "Impossible. Fear is the natural response to superior force. That is what our tactical manuals say, High Arbiter. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise." Admiral Chen's voice suddenly filled the command bridges of every ship in the Armada. She had somehow bypassed their communications security with casual ease, another impossibly human trick. "Greetings, friends from across the galaxy. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Fleet. I understand there's been some concern about our species and our methods. We'd like to invite your representatives to Earth for a conversation. No weapons, no tricks, just talking. We believe you might find it interesting." The alien commanders looked at each other in confusion. In all their military experience, no cornered enemy had ever invited them to dinner. Dr. Webb appeared on the transmission alongside Chen. "We know you've come to contain us because we're unpredictable." "You're right, we are unpredictable. But we'd like to show you why that might not be the threat you think it is." Commander Zextal made a decision that would change galactic history. Against all protocol, against all training, against all common sense, he accepted the human invitation. The landing party that descended to Earth consisted of representatives from 12 different species. They expected to find a world preparing for siege. Instead, they found a world preparing for the greatest cultural exchange in human history. The aliens were escorted not to military installations or government buildings, but to places humans considered sacred. Libraries where ancient knowledge was preserved alongside cutting-edge discoveries. Universities where children and adults learned together. Art galleries where beauty was created for no purpose other than the joy of creation itself. Commander Zextel found himself in a human institution called a museum, standing before an exhibit dedicated to the history of war on Earth. He expected to see weapons and strategies. Instead, he saw the evolution of conflict resolution, the gradual replacement of violence with communication, and the slow transformation of enemies into allies. Asterisk. Your species fought each other for millennia, he observed to his human guide, an elderly professor named Dr. Elena Rodriguez. We did, she replied without shame. We made terrible mistakes. We hurt each other in ways that still pain us to remember. But we learned, we grew. We chose to become better than we were. Zexthal studied a display showing the transformation of ancient battlefields into gardens and schools. The Corvani way is simpler. We conquer, we impose order, peace follows. Does it? Dr. Rodriguez asked gently, or does silence follow? The question haunted Zexthal as he continued his tour. He had seen 1,000 conquered worlds, and they all shared one characteristic. They were quiet, obedient, predictable, and somehow he was beginning to realize. Empty, TIE arbiter Velenara experienced her own revelation in Earth's great library, where human children as young as 5 years old asked her questions that no adult in her species had pondered in centuries. Questions about the nature of existence, the purpose of consciousness, the possibility of dreams they had never dared to dream. Why do you glow like that? Asked a small human girl with bright, curious eyes. It is the nature of my species, Velenara replied automatically. But why? What made you that way? Do you like glowing? Can you change colors? Do you dream in light? Each question struck Velenara like a physical blow. When had she stopped asking such questions? When had her people decided that understanding their nature was less important than accepting it? As the day progressed, the alien representatives found themselves drawn into experiences they had never imagined. They watched human children play games with no winners or losers, only exploration and laughter. They observed human scientists sharing their discoveries freely, even with competing research teams. They witnessed human artists creating beauty that served no strategic purpose, no political goal, no practical function beyond the simple miracle of existence itself. But it was the stories that changed everything. Asterisk. The fire that couldn't be controlled. Night fell over Earth. The alien representatives found themselves gathered in Central Park in New York City, surrounded by thousands of humans and a massive bonfire that reached toward the stars. What happened next would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Captain Yuki Tanaka, a human cultural specialist, stood before the assembled crowd. She was small in stature, but possessed a voice that could carry across worlds. Friends from distant stars, she began. You came here because you fear our unpredictability. Tonight, we want to share with you the source of that unpredictability. We want to tell you about dreams. Commander Zexthal shifted uncomfortably. The Corvani had long ago abandoned dreams as inefficient uses of mental resources. Sleep was for rest, not fantasy. Dreams, Captain Tanaka continued, are where humans go when reality isn't enough. They're where we imagine what could be instead of accepting what is. There where we find the courage to change the unchangeable. She gestured to the bonfire, and, as if on cue, images began to dance in the flames. Not through technology, but through the simple magic of storytelling and imagination. The humans began to share their stories, and somehow, the alien representatives began to see them. They saw the story of Maria Santos, a human child born on a world where the soil was toxic and the air was poison. Instead of accepting her fate, she dreamed of green-growing things. She spent her life developing new forms of plant life that could heal damaged worlds. Now, 17 planets bloomed because of her refusal to accept that dead worlds had to stay dead. Commander Zexthal watched the images flicker in the firelight and felt something stir in his warrior's heart. His own homeworld had been damaged by ancient wars. The Corvini had simply moved to a new planet and declared the old one a casualty of necessary conflict. But what if... What if it didn't have to stay that way? The stories continued. They heard of Dr. James Park, who dreamed of communication across species barriers. When traditional translation failed, he developed empathy protocols that let different species share emotions and concepts directly. His work had made possible the first peaceful contacts between humans and dozens of alien civilizations. High Arbiter Velanara felt tears forming in her ethereal form, something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Her people had achieved perfect communication within their species long ago. But between species, they had simply assumed it was impossible and stopped trying. But it was the story of Elder Thaxma that changed everything. Captain Tanaka called forward an ancient Corvini, so old that his forearms trembled with age. Commander Zexthal stepped back in shock. Thaxma had been declared dead 3 centuries ago, lost in the void between stars during a diplomatic mission. My young commander Thaxma wheezed, his voice carrying the weight of ages. I see you. Don't recognize me. But I remember you as a cadet, so eager to serve, so full of questions about why we fight. Elder Thaxma, Zexthal whispered. You were lost. We mourned you. I was found, the old Corvini replied. Found by humans who saw my ship drifting in space and chose to save an enemy rather than ignore his distress. I have lived among them for 300 years, and I have remembered something we forgot long ago. Thaxma struggled to his feet, and every Corvini in the galaxy watched through their commander's visual feed. We were not always warriors, my people. Before we became conquerors, we were explorers. Before we imposed order, we sought wonder. Before we decided that strength meant never changing, we believed that growth meant never stopping. The old Corvani's words reached across space to the homeworld, where millions of his people watched in stunned silence. In the deepest archives of their culture, buried beneath millennia of military doctrine, lay the truth he spoke. The Corvini had once been dreamers too. The humans didn't try to convert me, Thaxma continued. They simply lived their truth. In front of me every day. They showed me what we could become if we remembered how to ask what if instead of demanding what must be. Commander Zexthal felt his worldview cracking like old armor. Everything he had been taught, everything he had believed about strength and order and the natural way of things, suddenly seemed like a cage. He had built around his own spirit, but the humans weren't finished. From the assembled crowd stepped representatives of species from across the galaxy, not aliens who had come with the invasion fleet, but aliens who had been living on Earth, learning from humans and teaching them in return. There was Velshra of the Ethereal Council, who had been studying human philosophy for 50 years and discovered that predetermined fate was less fulfilling than chosen destiny. There was Unit 7742 of the Core Worlds, a machine intelligence that had learned the concept of creativity from human artists and had begun composing poetry that moved even organic minds to tears. Most surprising of all was the collective mind of Zephyria, a hive species that spoke as one but had learned from humans the value of individual voices within the chorus. We speak for trillions, the collective intoned through their biomechanical representative. For millennia, we existed as perfect unity, all minds thinking as one. The humans taught us that harmony and uniformity are not the same thing. They showed us that a symphony is more beautiful than a single note, no matter how pure that note might be. High Arbiter Valinara found herself questioning everything her species had achieved. Perfect order, perfect predictability, perfect control. But was perfection actually perfect if it prevented growth, discovery, joy? The night continued with more stories, more revelations, more impossible human dreams that had somehow become reality. They heard of worlds healed, species saved from extinction, conflicts resolved through understanding rather than conquest. Each tale chipped away at the aliens' certainty that chaos was the enemy of peace. As dawn approached, Captain Tanaka made one final gesture. She approached each alien representative and offered them something no conqueror had ever been given. A choice. You came here to contain us, she said simply. You can still do that. You have superior firepower, greater numbers, more advanced technology. You can destroy our cities, enslave our people, silence our dreams forever. But we want to offer you something else. We want to offer you partnership. E gestured to the sunrise, painting the sky in impossible colors. We want to show you what the galaxy could become if we stopped trying to control each other and started trying to understand each other. We want to invite you to dream with us. Commander Zexthor looked at his fellow alien representatives and saw the same transformation in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Fear was being replaced by curiosity. Suspicion was giving way to wonder. The need to control was dissolving before the desire to explore. What would this partnership look like? He asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. Dr. Webb stepped forward with a smile that had convinced 100 species to try peace instead of war. It would look like what humanity has always been about: questions instead of answers, growth instead of stagnation, hope instead of fear. We would explore the galaxy together, not as conquerors but as gardeners, planting seeds of possibility on every world we touch. The alien representatives looked at each other, then at the humans surrounding them with expressions of hopeful patience. No demands, no ultimatums, no threats. Just an invitation to become something greater than any of them had imagined possible. High Arbiter Valinara spoke first. The Ethereal Council will need time to consider this proposal. Of course, Captain, Tanaka replied. Take all the time you need. We'll be here, dreaming up new possibilities while we wait. Commander Zexthor surprised himself by laughing, a sound that felt foreign after centuries of military formality. The Corvani Empire accepts your partnership, not because we must, but because we choose to. One by one, the other representatives made their decisions. Not all said yes immediately, but none said no. For the first time in galactic history, an invasion fleet had become an exploration fleet. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It took years of patient work, careful diplomacy, and countless small acts of trust and understanding. But gradually, the galaxy began to change. Corvani warriors became Corvani artists, their discipline channeled into creating beauty instead of imposing order. Ethereal predictors became ethereal adventurers, using their abilities to explore possible futures rather than enforce predetermined ones. The machine intelligences of the core worlds began composing symphonies and writing poetry. The collective mind of Zephoria learned to sing in harmony rather than unison. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what they had always done. They asked questions. They dreamed impossible dreams. They refused to accept that the way things were was the way things had to be. The galaxy discovered that chaos wasn't the enemy of order. It was the friend of growth. And growth, they learned, was the most beautiful force in the universe. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned exploration vessel Harmony, watching as human and alien crews worked together to prepare for their first joint mission to the unexplored rim of the galaxy. Beside her, Commander Zexthel adjusted his new uniform, which bore both Corvani military honors and human civilian decorations. "Do you think it will work?" Zexthel asked. "This dream of yours?" Chen smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "I don't know, but that's what makes it worth trying." Behind them, the mixed crew continued their preparations. Humans and aliens learning from each other, growing together, reaching for wonders none of them could have imagined alone. The galaxy had once demanded control. Humanity had offered will. And in the end, will had proven stronger than any weapon, more durable than any fortress, more transformative than any technology. They had had control. But humanity had the fire that couldn't be controlled, wouldn't be contained, and refused to be extinguished. And now, that fire burned in hearts across the galaxy, lighting the way to possibilities as infinite as the stars themselves. Asterisk,